I want to talk today about why I think you may need to become obsessed in order to succeed in programming. And I know how that sounds, and I know how antisocial that may sound, but honestly, I think there's an element of truth to that a little bit. I remember me when I was back in school, I forfeited uh, some social interactions because I was working on my mobile apps at the time. And I would spend hours and hours sitting at the library, in my dorm room, and really wherever, just working on these apps. And to the outsider, it may seem like, oh, you're just wasting your time, like on apps that aren't going to make any money. And while yeah, it's true, I made like 4 cents on the apps, so I didn't make any money. Those helped me to get my first job at a school, and I look back on it. Um, I look back at it at the times that I did. I didn't go out and hang out with my friends, or I didn't go out and go out to eat or whatever they were doing. I stayed back and I worked on my programming stuff, and it wasn't even part of my school. And I think looking back on it, you could say that I allowed myself to become a little bit obsessed with my projects and programming, and just trying to create things and trying to make things that were that I was passionate about. I was really passionate about programming, and I still am now. But I think look back on when I started, there was such an element of like obsession that went along with it. You know what I mean? Like I remember reading this book, and it said that you have to allow kind of yourself to slip into the obsessed mind a little bit. And that sounds crazy, right? Like, why do I want to become obsessed with something? And I think what it's getting at, what it's really talking about, is you have to become so, passionate about what you're doing that's like becomes the thing that you work on, at the expense of sometimes your social life. Sometimes, I don't know, fill in the blank, but you have to work on that with such, passion that it just becomes your world for a little bit of time until you get to the end and you finish it and you make it and you release it. And it doesn't matter if you make any money from it, because if you start with the intent to make money, if it's all about money, you're not gonna, that shouldn't be what it's all about, right? If you're so interested in the topic and passionate about it, yeah, money is a side effect of that. And if you make money from it, that's a great thing. But when you get to the end of that, after you've allowed yourself to become so, obsessed with that, you're gonna look back on it and you're not gonna regret any of that time, especially if you succeeded in accomplishing your goal. I would say that, when I look back on that time, I don't regret not going out to see that one movie, or not going to watch, or not going out to eat that one time, or not going and playing soccer or whatever sport it was at the time. I don't regret that, because I still had those times. But there are still times that you have to say no to social events or engagements, so you can work on your project that that you're passionate about, and you need to become borderline obsessed, if not obsessed with, in order to accomplish your mission, your goal. And I think, okay, at the surface, it's like, well, do you want to become the person who's obsessed? Because sometimes they can be a little whoa, I don't know if I want to hang out with them. Truthfully, I really think that it's okay. When you're in school and you're studying, that should be your one of your sole missions, is to excel and do the best you possibly can at school. Your classes are some classes you're gonna hate, right? Some classes you just have to get through. But once you get to the core classes of your major, for me it was web development and C#. I love those classes. I did my homework day one, just because I just love the material and I love doing it. So once you get to those classes, you're gonna be oh, this is the greatest thing ever. You know what I mean? And then you're gonna be you're gonna start asking yourself the question, maybe I can become obsessed with this and completely throw myself into this to do the best that I can in this field. And I think that that's the level it takes. Now, for me, I don't think I'm there currently. Like, I think it's because I think what happens, is okay. I got my first, dev job. Now I've kind of gotten a little comfortable, right? I don't feel that same sense of maybe urgency or same sense of like drive to become obsessed again with the topic. And I'm trying to get back to that, and I'm just trying to think back to, what sacrifices did I have to make in order to excel at it, years back. What would that look like now? And man, I just, to allow yourself to become obsessed with it is I think a good thing in some degree, right? You have to do it at some level of moderation. You don't want to be completely, forego everything else in your life to focus singularly on this topic. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you have to be willing to completely throw yourself into the field, into programming in order to excel at it. A couple videos back, we talked about like the 9 to 5 job, and if it just requires the typical 40-hour week. And I think that this is kind of the same thread we're touching on here, is right. Like, okay, it's one thing to just get by and just to do the minimum, but what does it look like to do that? The little bit extra, not for somebody else, but for you. And where would you be years down the road after you've allowed yourself to do that? Hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully I've articulated that in some way, or hopefully I've gotten my point across. You could. I saw the one comment about my hat. Something about the point of my hat. I like my hat though. Said I've been like folding it like that for a long time. But maybe that's just where the area that I was in. Maybe that's just what we did. I don't know. But I kind of got a laugh out of that one. So, but yeah, I mean that's really what I want to talk about, because programming is a unique field in the sense that there's always going to be something new to learn, but I don't think that there's always going to be something new to become obsessed about. I think it'll be kind of tempting to hear this and equate it to me saying that you need to be antisocial, shut out the world and everything in order to excel at programming. And I don't think that's what I'm saying. I think truly what I'm saying is that in order to achieve your personal goal, or whatever your ambitions are, which I think everybody should have ambitions for their life, you have to allow yourself to kind of start to slip into that area of obsession in whatever field you're trying to excel at. So software development requires just so much time and effort into learning languages, just the obscure syntax and like the nuances of different frameworks and how systems communicate with one another, how microservice architecture versus building a monolith, different queues, different streaming services. There's so many things that you have to learn, and I think in order to learn that, you really have to become obsessed with studying it, and just obsessed with trying and prototyping and testing and working on personal projects to such a level that you have to start saying no to invitations and things, and there are things like that, or maybe experiences that you might have to pass up experiences for this time in your life in order to learn this now, so that later you can achieve the freedom to go off and do those things. Now, some people are kind of opposed to that line of thinking of like, well, you should live your life now and don't miss out on those experiences, but I think there's still some sacrifices that you have to make in order to excel and get where you want to be or what you're trying to achieve. And again, programming is such a unique field because there's always something to learn. For me, again, primarily focusing with C#, .NET, React, cloud technologies, things like that. There's definitely not a shortage of technologies and documentation for me to read to stay up with how everything's updating. And I don't see myself becoming exclusively obsessed with one of those singular pieces of technology. But in the broader sense of everything, I see, or hopefully see, I should say, myself continuing to have the same level of passion and desire to try to again become obsessed with learning everything, and to such a level that I can continue to excel and get just ahead of my own career, and just be the best developer I can be, or whatever. But again, it's there's a trade-off. There's always going to be something that has to give. There's always going to be sacrifices that have to be made. But all that to say is, I think try your best in whatever you do, and you get to where you want to go. So anyway, I'll see you in the next one.